Hello and welcome to week 12 in the psychology of personality. And this week we're looking at chapter 14. We're going to start going into some areas that really define why I picked the original textbook for this class, of which this course is based on, because it went into cosmology, religion, spirituality, and those kind of things and how they affect personality. Now, throughout this class, you probably got the gist that I think social factors have a lot to do with the construction of our personality, along with biological factors. And it was rare for me to find a uh, a, a treatment of personality, a treatment of the topic of personality that included aspects of society that I think are very important, such as values, morals, religious teaching, spirituality, cosmology, and stuff like that, that I think really shape a huge part of people's lives. Now, we're going to start off here, and I'm going to admit right off, we are looking at cultural aspects of personality of which I have very, very little personal experience. So in this chapter, we're looking at yoga and Buddhism as pathways in the development of personality. So the adherence to those philosophies and practices develop their personality and who they are and their perceptions of their place in the cosmos through the teachings that are involved in these two areas. So for me, I'm looking into things that I don't personally um, know a lot about per se, but I think it's a fun way for us as a class to look at these things. Some of you may be experienced practitioners of these things, and I'm really looking forward to see people's insight into that, to share that with us as sort of a multicultural experience here into how those things shaped your personality or continue to shape your personality. So we're looking at the bridge here between philosophy, religion, of course, the philosophy being the origins of psychology. And so these psychology, philosophy, religion, practice, whatnot, all of these things coming together. So there's a couple things that I'm having you look at for the discussion. We're going to focus on Buddhism and the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path, and those are outlined here. And let me set this up here. These are on page 252 in the course book. Here we have the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. And for us to reflect upon these things, suffering is unavoidable. The source of suffering is craving or desire, and the bad karma it creates. The craving that leads to suffering can be destroyed, and the middle way below is the path to eliminate cravings and suffering. So it's the teaching here is that suffering is completely within the psyche, regardless of what's happening outside. Even when we're victims of something or horrible things are happening in the world, that ultimately suffering has to do with craving and desire for things to be different. Now, it also says that suffering is inevitable. So there's a certain amount of, let's say, serenity that comes with understanding that things are not always pleasant. Suffering will happen. This does not necessarily mean that we let suffering happen. When we have the ability to interact with it and change it, I mean, certainly we are change agents as much as we might at sometimes have to accept and become serene about suffering itself. Then we go into the pathway that this particular philosophy emphasizes in terms of how to rid yourself of the cravings and desires that ultimately lead to suffering. That through knowledge, intention, speech, conduct, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, and concentration, each one of these things really developing a sense of awareness as to how our behaviors are and how they contribute to our cravings and whatnot, about cravings and desires that ultimately lead to suffering. So for the discussion, what I'm having you do is consider those things. Consider those aspects of your life. And for maybe for most of us, we consider them kind of abstractly. Or maybe within your own framework, there are similar ideas that have to do with, that are sort of equitable to those kinds of ideas. So let's say within the Christian philosophy, there's a certain amount of acceptance that individuals will fail. They will always fall short of the glory of God. That statement, I've heard it many, many times. We will always fall short to that. And there's a certain amount of that can be interpreted as, oh, I guess it's futile to try. But yet at the same time, there's also an acceptance of, I don't need to be perfect. I don't need to be flawless. And that does not necessarily mean that I don't keep trying to be flawless. And that may be kind of akin to the concept of suffering. So particularly when we look at suffering as a result of desire, like I'll never reach that, I'll never have that, but I'll never be perfect. We see these philosophies across very different uh, spiritualized contexts, and yet they're very similar. So a discussion about those things, compare, whatnot. In the quiz, I'm asking you to look at the 5 hindrances of development. And let's take a look at those. Now, those are found on page 248. The first one, ignorance. Now, ignorance, you have to understand, is a lack of knowledge. It's not an intelligence. It's not a stupidity, or like say, oh, that person's ignorant. That's actually being ignorant of something simply means you don't know. So I am ignorant of how to fix a car, for the most part, the engine kind of thing. I'm ignorant of that. I'm not an ignorant person. So ignorance in this context is really understanding or seeking an understanding of the world. Get this one, a sense of personality. This is actually within this philosophy, this whole course, us talking about, who we are and whatnot. This is a mistake we make when we think our personality is our true self. Oh, there's some deep thinking. Desire, see, that's similar to what we see in the other theory. Hate, holding on to that. I mean, even within modern psychology, they talk about when we hold on to grudges and we hold on to hate and we hold on to those things that, other people are living rent free in your head, as they say, and burdening ourselves with those things. And then, and this is the one that probably gets the most attention in the Western world, although the sense of personality, I sense ignorance and the sense of personality, from my understanding of this, very, very, very important parts of understanding this perspective. But the sense of attachment of, we have Freudian thought that really focuses on the importance of attachment. But what we rarely look at in the Freudian perspective is that with that attachment is also his companion theory of separation individuation, where we form attachments, but they also end. So Freud covered both ends of that stuff. So we form attachments, but ultimately there's the process of separation, individuation, which happens in many respects. It could be the childhood toys that we leave behind. It could be relationships. It could be people passing away. It could be things that don't work out. Those kind of things, all of these ways in which we become attached to things, but then when they're, we struggle with the ability to detach. And here we see in this philosophy, we become very attached to many things, people, objects, ways of life, all of those things. And these are seen within this philosophy as hindrances to growth when we become attached, even attached to ideas. I mean, I find myself attached to many ideas within the world of psychology, and they help define and structure my world. But yet, in some ways, those are also hindrances for me being open to other ideas that might come along that are different than those. So I work to try and have a balance between the philosophical underpinnings of the field that I study and how that impacts my life, while at the same time understanding that there are other ways of perceiving the world, and that I am contributing to my development by ensuring that I'm not too attached to the ideas that I have at any given moment. This is a deep one, isn't it? And I said right from the beginning, for all I know, I'm misrepresenting the truism of yoga and Buddhism here. And if I am, I apologize deeply. These are not my own personal perspectives, but I think they're fun to talk about. They're important for for lots of different people. These are very important things, and I think they challenge the Western thinking mind. When we look at Eastern philosophies, the Western dualism, scientific kind of mindset that most of us have get challenged. And there's nothing wrong with that. All right. So have a great week. Have a great week diving into this stuff, whether it's familiar or unfamiliar to you. And look forward to all the work you're going to do on this. And take great care. Oh, and there's another assignment that's due. I believe, sorry about that, Chapter 11 assignment on meditation is going to be due this week. That goes back to the app or the other methodology that you use. Just remember that assignment is due this week as well. So, thank you very much, and I will see you next time.